Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Yellow Tape. My name is Julian. This is Nitty, and we thank you guys for being back here. I feel like it's been a while, but we have backstock episodes, so it's all right. And today we have a great episode. Nitty maybe learned some stuff, but I learned a whole bunch of stuff, and that's great. So I'll just shut up and let Nitty introduce our guest.
Thank you, Julian. Thank you, everyone. So today we have a special guest, a friend of mine, and I've known her since a few years. Her name is Dr. Mirna. She has an amazing CV. We go into a lot of details about her work, but just to briefly introduce her, she did her Bachelor's of Science from Beirut, Lebanon. After that, she came to do her master's in the US by the Fulbright Scholarship Program. She did a master's from Purdue University. She did her doctorate degree from Florida International University. And she currently holds two positions. She is the director of the Forensic Science Master's Program at Thomas Jefferson University. And she is also the associate director for the biology department at the Center for Forensic Science Research and Education in Philadelphia. You will learn a lot about her work, her involvement in the field in forensics. So I won't go much into it because it's a nice, wonderful episode to learn from. So let's get right into it. But before we try to get on the episode and learn about forensics, please do not forget to like,
share,
and subscribe to our channel on YouTube, Beyond the Yellow Tape. Let's get into it. Thank you. Okay, thank you so much, Mirna, for joining us for our podcast today at Beyond the Yellow Tape. The first question that comes to my mind is looking at your very amazing CV. You were a research assistant in your home country in Beirut, and from there, you did your master's, PhD in forensic science, and now you work as the associate director for the Forensic Science Research Institute in Philadelphia. So how did the transition from working as a research assistant in a medical center transition to becoming an associate director at a forensic institute? If you could shed a little bit of a light on that.
Yes, of course. First of all, thank you both for having me here on your podcast. It's such a pleasure for me to be here with you. And back to your question and how that transition happened. Well, first of all, I've never thought that could have happened. Coming from a small country on the Mediterranean Sea and, focused on I was in the medical field, but I've always been interested in forensics. I wanted anything related to lab, right? So that's where I started. I did my bachelor's in medical lab sciences, had the chance to work at the American University in Beirut, the medical center, in the research in molecular diagnostics. So it's always been DNA focused, but obviously it was medically or clinical focus, which was great. It gave me a lot of exposure to, different techniques, the troubleshooting, critical thinking, and all that. But wanted forensics. That's what I decided that I should try to reach for other opportunities and applied for for a scholarship to come into the States. And that's where I did my master's in forensics at Purdue. And then I was like, this is not enough for me. I want to learn more. And that's when I went down to Miami and did my PhD in biochem. All of my focus was in forensics. So all my research, my publications are related to forensic genetics and epigenetics. And I had the chance to do multiple things at my university at the time, which gave me that broad, aspect of what it means to be in research and education, which both are my passion, especially that's all forensics. And somehow I landed to this position at the Center for Forensic Science Research and Education. Actually, it was referrals through my advisor and the director of the center. And then I had a very casual interview in one of the conferences. And then I visited the center and I loved the mission and vision of the foundation. And then I got an offer and I joined them earlier this year.
It's wonderful.
Yeah,
so what does the job entail, being the associate director in the center?
So it's a really interesting dynamics, I think, at the foundation. So it's a nonprofit, but we have affiliations with 2 different institutes and universities. The main one is the Thomas Jefferson University. So I'm the program director for their forensic Masters of Science in Forensic Biology. And then, so one aspect of it is the education, mentoring as master's level students, particularly just focused on forensic biology. So the students will have all the hands-on experience, all the forensic genetics focused knowledge throughout their 2 years program, but every course will have, their aspect of the hands-on. So they use the same exact technology, instrumentation, analyses that are used in crime labs. So I have a team of forensic biologists who've worked as casework analysts and DNA analysts prior to being at the center. So they bring in the casework experience, and I bring in the different teaching and research experience. So that's one part of the job. We also have obviously the other side, which is research, so writing grants and collaborating with other crime labs or with the industry to come up with new technologies or better technologies that can answer some of the gaps that are still in forensic DNA analysis. And the last aspect of my job has to deal with outreach and STEM outreach. So we try to connect, high schoolers with undergraduates through our programs like the FMI program, which brings in mentors from undergraduate programs we train them to train high schoolers in forensics. So I love this vibrant, culture at work. So it's not like one thing that you do, you just focus on it. It's like literally anything and everything you can think of in forensic biology.
That's a lot of work, but that's amazing.
Thank you.
I guess before we go any further, could you talk about growing up in Beirut, which I admit I thought was in Turkey at first. I was wrong. It's in Lebanon, people. Can you talk about growing up and I guess what led you to forensics? Because maybe I don't know too many people outside of Nitty that are from overseas and that also had an interest in forensics growing up, because I feel like a lot of people in the States looking at TV shows, and everything, and I guess get their basis off of that. Would you say it's similar for you, or like pretty much what drew you to forensics?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I did bring it up previously in some of the blogs that I was part of. So just to clarify, I'm from Tripoli, which is the northern city in Lebanon, but I studied in Beirut. The country is all is a tiny country, so it's all the same. So growing up, actually, it's a funny story now thinking about it, but growing up, it wasn't that funny because I was the youngest child with 4 siblings. Now we're 6, but at the time when I was a kid, we were 4, and I used to look a bit different, like characteristics wise, skin color, hair color, and stuff like that, compared to my siblings. And they would tease me saying that, oh, we just, you're not like our biological sibling. We just, found you all alone, and now you are part of the family. But see, you look different. You're not. And then I would say, no, how am I? Like, I would get offended, right? As a kid, how you're saying that, not knowing that it was all a joke. So I got introduced to DNA and in general way early on. And for forensics, it really started with, like I'm saying, I was like probably, I don't know, 6, 7 years old, used to watch a cartoon, an animation show that was a child, like a kid or a child who was so smart and can solve all of the crimes. So I was like, oh, I want to solve crimes like how he does. And then when I became older, I was like, this is not enough for me. I need real documentaries. So started watching and binge watching literally like real documentaries. Never was interested in like just fiction or those Hollywood kind of drama and crime scenes, but the ones that are real cases where they went through the process of how they've analyzed a crime scene and how they came up to their conclusion is what intrigued me. And that's where I decided that what I want is combine my DNA love and forensic love, and ended up in forensic biology.
That's amazing. So did you study about forensics when you were in Lebanon, or did you pick it up after you came to the States?
Yeah, so not, and funny enough, actually, and I don't know how I'm admitting that, so English is my third language, not even my second, but the word forensics in English, I really didn't get introduced to that word until I was taking my human genetics course in my undergraduate degree in Lebanon. We had a guest speaker who was studying also, I think he was in Europe, came in as a guest speaker in that course to talk about forensics. I knew that I want something, criminology or, things in science and criminology, but that word didn't click in my brain until that time. And that's when I started searching. I was like, this is exactly what I want. And that's what I, started to know there are different subfields within forensics, but I wanted to combine DNA, and forensic biology was the closest. And that's how I came up across the, being in this field, I guess.
That's very nice. So you mentioned a little bit, like a sentence about a scholarship that you got when you came to the States. So was that the Fulbright scholarship that you applied for? And if it was, would you give us a little bit of information as to why did you apply for the scholarship, and what were the requirements, and how did that scholarship help you to come to States? Because it's very important, considering you're an international, if anyone listens to our podcast, that there are options out there where people can use to come to States and study.
Yeah, it definitely was. I call it my golden gate, because it really, if it wasn't for the scholarship, I would have never dreamt of coming to the States, for multiple reasons. Not only, obviously, the financial aspect is the biggest of it, because it's a fully funded scholarship, but also all of the perks that comes with that scholarship. So a bit of background about it. It's it's one of the flagship prestigious scholarships funded by the U.S. Department of State, particularly the Bureau of Education and Cultural Affairs. So it's kind of an exchange program where U.S. citizens will, and if they get that scholarship, they go abroad to do more research and, teaching language and stuff like that. And for whoever is not U.S. citizen, comes to the U.S. to do their graduate studies. And it's, I don't know how many countries, but more than 100 countries, they have that opportunity to apply for the scholarship and come to the States. And Lebanon particularly, it was only offered for master's level. And then it was, it's very competitive because they only select 10 students per year from all majors. So I wasn't like, I didn't even think in my life that I would get it, but I have a kind of a philosophy, or motto, whatever you want to call it in life, that I don't want to say what if in the future. So I would just do my best, I'll work hard, and apply. And if things don't happen, I'm a strong believer that whatever doesn't happen, it's for the best for the best for me, but I still want to apply. And that's how I ended up applying. I was like, you know what, I know that the process is really tedious. It's around a year and a half between the time you apply and the time you hear back, and so many different exams and shortlisted and interviews and another exam and another interview, but it's all worth it. Like the moment you get the scholarship, it's all worth the hard work you did, because it's fully funded. You get the chance to present at conferences, go to enrichment seminars, get the feel of being a Fulbrighter, and the recognition that comes with it actually had helped me and opened a lot of doors for me after that scholarship.
Oh, that's amazing. So I didn't know that not only do you get sponsored to study, but you can also they give you money to go to conferences?
Yeah, so they cover your tuition, your fees, they give you a monthly stipend, book allowance, and then also enrichment seminars and some funding for other stuff. So, and everything is covered, basically, even the flight ticket to come to the States. So.
Oh, really? That's amazing. Wow.
Yeah.
I wish I knew that before. My parents would
have
have
got better
very
grades in school,
happy.
man. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So how did you go from master's with the Fulbright scholarship to PhD? Like what led to that push or to study more in the field?
Yeah, I mean, I've always loved like learning new things. So that wasn't something new for me. But when I finished my master's and I got all of this, you know, it was like literally like adrenaline rush, I guess, through the master's. People may not agree with me. I just think that I wanted to learn more. And I remember I told my advisor, I was like, I really want to do a PhD. So what do you recommend? And they started giving me, you know, recommendations of different professors to reach out to. Because, you know, it's not like a master's degree where you can apply for multiple programs without per se talk to a specific faculty member. When it comes to PhD, you really have to first check with who is the advisor, what type of research they do, what type of publications they do they have option for them or a space for you to be in their lab, do they have funding? So there are a lot of aspects that go with being a PhD student, and I only applied for 2 places and I got accepted in both, but then went with one of them that was quicker to respond to me, and then, you know, I felt the good vibe of being in that institute, and then moved from Indiana to Miami.
2 very different places.
Very different cultures and beautiful places.
Yes, they are indeed.
To switch gears, you have tons of publications, and I was going to talk about one, specifically the genital microbiome and its potential for detecting sexual assault, because I actually do a lot of sexual assault cases at my job here. So could you give us a little overview in that? And I know you and Nidhi are good in the DNA and genetics department, so if you could dumb it down for me, please.
Yes, yeah, that was one of the very interesting pilot studies that we actually did. So we all know that we have like a backlog in sexual assault cases, and the amount of cases where they're either not tested or the ones that are tested and you don't get a full profile or not even a partial profile that would be eligible for CORIS and, you know, to continue with the conventional method. And those cases oftentimes are considered cold with no closure for the victim whatsoever. So we started thinking of alternative methods of potentially at least proof objectively if a sexual contact occurs. And that's where the concept of the natural bacteria that are present in the genital area for females and males, where the interest. So we're like, are they different? If they are different, which bacteria that are present there can distinguish a female from a male? Are they specific just to the genital area? Because based on the Locard principle of exchange, that anything that come in contact should transfer something. And because we have so many bacteria compared to how many human cells, the idea was like, the hypothesis was like, okay, if I don't find a foreign male DNA, am I still gonna find at least some male specific bacteria that can prove if a sexual contact occurs? And that's where this project all came along.
Okay.
So is that the step you take after you look for, after the screening is done for sexual assault and you can't find sperm?
Correct. So the thought is, obviously now it's not in any actual casework, it's still in the research phase, because we still need to understand a lot about the transferability, stability, the signature and all of that. But yes, the idea would be eventually that when you don't have male DNA, because that's the gold standard, obviously you want something to identify a specific perpetrator, try to find a match in the database and go all the conventional method, do all the statistics. But in cases we're saying, okay, we don't have enough male DNA, can I still exploit that same sample that I'm collecting from the sexual assault kit and look for those signature bacteria that are specific?
But then if you, sorry.
Yeah.
So you don't have enough male DNA, so you can't do the test came out inconclusive for male, or maybe no male DNA, human sperm present. Then you move to gut. I'm just thinking of the pipeline. Then you move to knowing if using the gut, using the microbes to see if genital microbes to see if male is present. But then if you still have to get a profile for DNA, because you can't just rely on that because they are probably not confirmatory because it would be the same across all humans. So
that's actually a very good question. And then that's where there is a need, obviously, for more research. So what so far we know is that there are bacteria that are the ones that are for female are way more studied and understood. But even if you think of us one bacterial species, when we looked, we did now a continuation of the study that you're just talking about that was on couples pre-coital and post-coital, so before sexual contact and after sexual contact. And you would think, let's say bacteria A is present in 2 couples. If you look at the SNPs or the polymorphisms within these bacteria, you're gonna even see further differences. So even if it's the same bacterium, it's just the family or the genus, when you look at the species and the strain level, even the strain level, that can show you some SNP differences that can differentiate the same bacterium from one individual to another. Obviously, we have to do more population study to see how strong of an evidence it could be, whether it can ultimately be confirmatory or maybe presumptive, but can solve some cases where, you know, the victim is a child who cannot speak for themselves or an elderly who cannot speak for themselves. Can you at least prove that, yes, indeed, a sexual contact occurred, even if you cannot probably pinpoint it to a specific person, but narrow it down to a potential pool of suspects?
And then you can also use single cell technology if it is
There we
present.
go. We complement
So you never know. I'm sorry. I tried to push in.
Yeah.
What I
We
do.
all, as researchers, that's what we want to do. Show the pros and cons, or the advantages and disadvantages of every technology and every methodology, and whether there is a need to combine, if possible, different methodologies for more power of this discrimination.
But that's amazing, because at least, like you said, for like child cases where sometimes it doesn't matter if who did it, but it matters to know if that happened, because it's easier to, I don't know, just it's good to know what's happening.
Yes.
We don't have to pinpoint it to anyone. So that's and I hope more research happens in that field.
We hope more funding can be poured into that.
Absolutely. So considering, I'm just going to switch gears again in a way that, so for the projects that probably you worked on during your PhD, and now you are working at the center, the Forensic Science Center, as an associate director, do you get to work on those same projects, or do you have other projects that you work on? And how does the Institute look for funding, and what goes into the mechanisms for your ideas?
Yeah, so it depends on the type. Some projects now I would like to see them more implemented in cases, actually. So one of the works that I've done is developing a very simple, quick technique to identify different non-human DNAs. So in case you have, you know, pets or meat sources or anything like that, or even a bone from non-human, can you identify in a cost-effective and quick way? So now we have that, for example, the assay up and running and validated at the center. So we will hope that we can promote more, that we do have that capability for any lab who's not focused on non-human, or they want some investigative lead, so they can outsource it to us. So that's one thing that I would like to see more often implemented. And other things, there is always can be some continuation, body fluid identification, you know, other things. But I'm also working on, you know, with my team to build our own research brand. Even if research and brand don't come together, I think ultimately it is. So I'd like to delve more into like emerging epigenetic methodologies, technologies that can further give more answers from the same evidence or biological evidence, to be specific. So I think that was part of the question. I think the other part you've asked is about the funding and how the mechanism. So it depends on the type of project. Some of them are collaborations with the industry, and oftentimes when that is the case, then all reagents and supplies are supported by these vendors. But more so, our focus is to write federal grants or even some smaller grants to apply for funding for doing research in particular. So there are different venues and avenues to how we would be able to financially support the research we do through also our academic programs and the partnerships we have with the universities. So there's always something going on now. At least there are, I don't know, 5-6 projects going on, and I've been only earlier this year joining the work. So it's busy and it's good. It's a good busy time.
Very nice. So it's different projects, probably continuation or something that you're working on with industry, your lab, and also school. So that's a lot.
It's fun though. It's really fun. It's a lot, but it's fun.
It's a lot.
Right.
So do you also design research like internships for students at your university and help them come to the institute to work, or is it only university based?
Actually, that's one of our strongest flags at the foundation, at the Center for Forensic Science Research and Education, is actually our internship program. So we have, and it's not like a type of, with all due respect to all the internship programs out there in the market, it's really well structured, experts who have casework experience, and scientists are heavily involved with the students over a course of one of our programs is, I think, 7 weeks long, and they would learn literally all the fundamentals and the hands-on, so they can even process a whole case from A to Z, like all the way from the chain of custody and how to open an evidence to doing the screening, the serology, to DNA extraction quant, all the way to doing a profile, comparing and doing the statistics, writing the report, and how to testify in the court. So they get the whole aspect of forensic biology, but we have also forensic toxicology and forensic chemistry to really be prepared with all the hands-on experience that they would need if they become or they went into the forensic route as a career.
Sounds perfect.
It's actually, that's perfect. My internship was fine and it was pretty good at NYPD, medical examiner's office. We didn't get to process the sample all the way through. Like, you get a project and you work on it, and probably that's how you gain experience in the lab. But this is wonderful. I wish I had a chance to do my master's.
And by the way, it's not only confined to our students who are in our program at the Thomas Jefferson University. So we have our external internship. So anyone who's attending other schools but don't have the instrumentation or the capability to do hands-on, so they can apply to our program, our internship program. It's pretty competitive, actually. We have a lot of applications, but we want to limit it because of the space. We like to give this hands-on, one-on-one kind of guideline. So we cannot like have too many, in a lab, too many students at a time. So we really have to narrow it down to specific number of students per. Now we do it only in the summer. The hope later is to expand it for many other, like spring and fall as well. So then they can do all of these trainings with us.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's really good.
I'll wait for Julian to ask.
I guess I have another publication question. I just want to know, because you, in one of your publications, you talk about pyrosequencing based assays. Could you pretty much explain to someone like me what that is?
Yes, of course. So I'll try to use my science communication to, make it in a layman format. So it's a type of sequencing that doesn't require bioinformatic knowledge. So one of the things that anyone can think of sequencing, I need to, not everyone is nitty who knows a lot of bioinformatics. So this technology doesn't require bioinformatic knowledge. It's very not labor intensive. So anyone who like my team, for example, didn't have any exposure on pyrosequencing. We just bought an instrument and they got trained in 1-2 days, and then they've done a few runs, and now they're very comfortable in sequencing and running all the assays. So it's pretty automated. It's sequencing by synthesis, but it's based on what we call chemiluminescence. So it like something, not fluorescence per se, but something that generates light, and that lights get detected based on your template. But it's the low throughput, not like high throughput massively sequencing or anything like that. So it's cost effective. Depending on your your application, it would be beneficial to run pyrosequencing, but maybe other applications require other outputs, so you would need to go higher, or which would cost more. So, but for species ID, for example, which I think the paper you're trying to reference to, that's using this technology, you don't really need a lot of depth in read in your sequence. So this assay, which is cost effective, rapid, and quick to implement, can give you the answer you need for differentiating species.
Is that what it's best used for species differentiation?
Actually, it's one of the very good applications for it is epigenetics. So methylation, what we call methylation, that's used to age prediction or body fluid identification. Some applications actually on detecting whether someone is a smoker or not, or used to smoke or never smoked. Some, phenotypic applications. So anything within the realm of epigenetics, or the modifications that happen to your DNA, can be detected with good quantification on this instrument.
Really?
Yeah.
So would you mind just going a little bit in depth into what epigenetics is? I'm sure you gave us the examples, but just a little bit of that. We can have like a nice little snippet where people could.
Yes. So epigenetics is, so epi means above, and above genetics meaning the modifications that not necessarily would change your DNA sequence, but would change the structure of your DNA because of those modifications. Some of the reasons these modifications happen is environmental. So diet you have, alcohol consumption, drug intake, any other things that you can think environmentally may affect your body. There are some locations within your DNA that can be modified. And when we say epigenetics, it's mostly we're talking about DNA methylation. So looking at methylation markers within your DNA. So I think this is the brief of what epigenetics is, but from a forensics perspective, it's now being exploited to give you more of these phenotypic information. The one like there are markers that will be methylated differently depending on your age. So they're exploiting those markers to give you an age prediction of your unknown biological sample, which can be an investigative lead in cases of genealogy or, other missing person or anything like that, where you need those additional information that can only be obtained, or one of the well-known ways to be obtained is through epigenetics or DNA methylation.
Okay.
That's amazing. Thank you. This was very, very elaborate and amazing. Thank you.
I hope it wasn't too much.
No, it was not.
No, that was good. That was
exactly
good.
what we needed. So considering you working in the field to try to come up with methods to make forensics either easier or accessible or faster, where do you think, according to your perspective, the biggest pitfall is that we need to all, or the gap is where we need to all work on to make it better or accessible, so that it's not always questioned and it gives results with utmost accuracy? If you could elaborate a little bit on that.
Yeah, such an excellent question. And that is, we should have more conversations on that particular pitfalls or the issues that still need to be addressed. And I think so far, yes, there are a lot of talks about, policies and laws and regulations and guidelines and all that, which is really important, and standardization, which is key. Accreditation is another thing. But if I want to focus on forensic biology, which is our area of focus, I think accepting or being more amenable to accept new technologies, like the power of sequencing, has to be applied somehow now more often to forensic applications. It tends to be like the trend. I feel like it's oftentimes medical, and then kind of forensics follow afterwards.
Yes.
After all of the stuff that are done, whether that's research and funding that's given to the medical or clinical research, right? And then whatever they learned there, or the discoveries they made, it's being exploited to forensics, which is not wrong. It's just that I wish it's a bit more, is faster to be adopted. So I think what we're lacking is strong training opportunities for DNA analysts to get these hands-on, probably because when they went to school, they didn't have that luxury of learning all of this emerging technology. Can we offer something like that for them to come in on board, let's say to our center, and then, get through that training all the way from hands-on to analysis to troubleshooting? Because I think this is what we're lacking. And I think if we offer that, we're gonna give more opportunities to adopt these newer technologies that will help in solving some more cases that probably the conventional method is not capable of doing so.
So do you think that the bottleneck effect, like we are like stuck for us, like thinking as to if we come up with a new technology and if we use it, can we take that to court and explain that we use this? Do you think that even that transition is also slow, which is kind of creating a bottleneck for all this other research that has been going on in the field?
Yes, that's definitely. So that's exactly we're talking about the exact same workflows, yet not only the bottleneck is in adopting, is part of it is, I have so much work to do all the way for this technology to be accepted in the court. And that's where is the need for filling those gaps. Yes, if let's say I have issues in training and being proficient in a technology, let's give this opportunity for trainings. If there is an issue in how can I explain it to the court and how can I make it accessible, let's push more publications out. Let's push more structured validation that can help crime labs to do those validations quicker, so they can go into apply or accepting it in the court. So yes, I do agree, like this is one of the bottlenecks, but we're talking exactly about the same chain of needing more training, more sharing data. That's another thing. So if I have to do a validation from zero and there is no guideline or not even any data to kind of get trained on, I would get overwhelmed, and I probably would say I'm okay with my conventional method. I don't want to do more,
Right.
But I guess more sharing, more interlab collaborations will facilitate the adoption of those new technologies.
Right. Yeah. Because I think all the research usually, I'm not an expert, nor do I have an understanding of the entire field, but like the target usually is like niche cases, like smaller cases. But then we forget about that there are other 1,000 cases that needs to be taken care of, where we're only targeting and focusing it on like the 10. With the 10 helps, everyone should be treated equally. But then the bulk is also still waiting to be analyzed. So I don't know, like it's always like an imbalance as to where to do and what work to be done. But hopefully
Correct.
it'll be sorted eventually.
Hopefully, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'll pass it on to Julian, otherwise I'll keep asking questions.
Thank you. We know that you often give advice to PhD students. So could you give us and everyone listening some advice to people who are maybe and since you are a doctor, can you explain to, I don't know, I can't find my words, or just what are some tips for people at different levels in their like forensic science and mainly like a forensic genetics journey, since you have done all levels of the field at this point?
Yeah, so that's an excellent question. And yes, I always love to chat to students, not only PhDs, any student, even a high schooler who's thinking of forensics. First of all, I'd like to debunk all of myths they may have from, shows they watch. It's not that glamorous and all easy and quick field, right? But also explain the real humanitarian and justice that's going to be rewarding if you go into that field. And I think for anyone who's interested or still thinking of being in the field, I would advise them to be more involved or do more readings and the publications that are ongoing, or even social media, but from resources that are well trusted. For example, Issue News always releases new updates on cases being solved or new technology and stuff like that. So from credible sources, being able to get the knowledge, and also not to be afraid of asking questions. I think this is what I've learned the hard way, is always like, well, I don't want to ask a question, but that's the only way you can learn, right? So that first time I got the courage actually to ask a question is when it really clicked to me that I can do that. I can ask anyone question. Obviously, it has to be in a nice way, well formatted, all that. You get used to it the more you do it. But I think connecting with like-minded people, have a strong profile on professional bases like LinkedIn, for example, try to connect with people in the field. For me, anyone in the field, whether that's someone who's a DNA analyst or the director of I don't know what institute, I don't mind connecting. Worst case scenario, they wouldn't accept, I'm fine, right? But the ones who are going to accept, I'm going to learn from them, because if they're liking something in the field, that's how I oftentimes would read about new publications, is someone sharing, another one liking, and then, me reading through these publications and getting to know more who's the expert or who are the experts in a specific area. How can I connect with them? How can I build relationship with them so I can potentially have some sort of collaboration in the future, or even a consultancy from them to get to do more to the forensic community. Gotcha. So if I would want to summarize, I know I said so many things, to sum it up, not to be afraid of asking questions and to put yourself out there, even if it's not so much your personality. It's like, oh, I don't want too much exposure, right? That was me, and I'm still like that sometimes. But this is how you really can get to where you want to be, if you really want to be somewhere to give and have an impact in the forensic community.
Right.
Thank you. That was a beautiful piece
Perfect.
of advice.
Yeah.
I have a question. So it's kind of a two-parter, not to make it like women-oriented or women-focused, but you are a woman for international, working in the States. Did you happen to face any challenges being a woman or being an international? And if you did, would you have any piece of advice for people who wish to come and study not only forensics, but any field that hasn't been explored much in different countries and they are like new to it? Would you have anything to say about it?
Yes, an excellent question. And oftentimes, we all would hear some stereotypes, right? And me coming from not only women and not only international, I'm also considered minority, like my appearance can tell, right? So there are a lot of, kind of stereotypes of how are you gonna, I came here and all of my family is back home, right? So I was all alone here. So there was some sort of fear of what am I gonna, what am I gonna get? Would people accept me? Would people understand my accent? Would people, be okay of who am I and my borders and what I want to do and what I cannot do because I practice a specific faith or whatever, right? But thank God, to be honest with you, I don't think I really faced so many incidences that have negatively affected me. I'm not saying everything is, it's not a Barbie land based on the Barbie movie. It's not like that. It's just that I think it also depends on the personality and whether you want things to affect you or not. Yes. For me, if someone is asking me a question about my faith, or let's say about my physical appearance, why do you dress this way? Or why do you put this? Or do you feel like you're oppressed? They start bringing those, also their stereotypes to me. But for me, I feel like this is the opportunity where I can clarify to them or fix some of these myths or stereotypes. So I don't get it I don't take any of these questions offensively or defensively for on myself. I actually think about it in this is my opportunity to show the real us and not what the social media or the media in general would show us. So that's why I think I don't consider myself facing discrimination. I feel like here people really appreciate you of who you are and not how you look like or where you come from. They would have a conversation with you based on the knowledge you have or because they're curious to know about you and not per se because they want to challenge you or make you feel uncomfortable. I felt like it's really such a melting pot I've been here. It's almost going to be 8 years. So.
Wow, that's a long time.
That's great.
Yes.
Did you face any trouble being international while looking for jobs, or certain things that you can't apply for? Or if you have any suggestions where people should look for jobs if they are internationals, because they take the field because of the cinema, that's very fancy, pretty, and like, oh, I get to go to the crime scene. But when you apply for PDs, they don't take internationals, some of them. So have you come across certain problems that you can help shed some light on?
Yeah, so of course there will be some. As internationals, we would not be eligible to apply. But if we think about it, we're talking about forensics, meaning we're talking about something regarding privacy, security, background check, all that. So while I would have loved to have some sort of, exposure in an actual casework field, I knew right from when I started that I may not get that opportunity, and I already would not be qualified because of my international background to be in these places, to be able to do this hands-on. So coming with that mentality first and not putting so much expectations, I want to be at the FBI, although yes, that's what I would have loved to, do an internship there. But I knew that as an international, I may have this challenge. But that challenge brings other opportunities, which means there are other options you can go to. You wouldn't face as much of challenges if you were in academia, like my situation, or in research, or even industry. So often people would just think of, I want to become a DNA analyst, which is great. But then also there are other options. You can be, as R&D, research and development in a biotech company or anything like on that level. Or you can be in a private lab. So private labs oftentimes have less restrictions compared to a state or a federal lab. So you can still get exposure. And some of the state labs, I think they would, after like a long background check, accept internationals. It's base by base, but just be open-minded, open to different opportunities and not limit yourself to one thing. And if that thing doesn't happen, you're like, oh, why did I even go into this field, right?
No, that's very true.
Right.
So people listening, there are other options out there than just what
Yes.
you have an
Ask us.
So please look for them. Don't be disappointed. You'll find something that you like to do for sure. We have 2 more questions, I guess. I think one of the questions is regarding your 2025 GSR position, and then there's one with the epigenetics. So whichever one Julian wishes to ask, I'll ask the other.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, you got elected to be the co-chair of the 2025 GRS Forensic Analysis of Human DNA. Could you explain to us what that group is, and I guess what your vision for that group is in the future?
Yeah, so this one is the a subset of the Gordon Research Conference, or GRC. So GRC has like a specific model for running conferences that I had the chance to attend, the forensic DNA focused in 2022. And they obviously they have different topics. Some of them are not related. Most of them are not related to forensics, but one of the ones that is related to forensic is forensic DNA. And when I attended the conference, they have before that conference starts, there is kind of a seminar version, which is a 2-day version run by students for students. So it's kind of an encouragement for the students to come in and present their research, connect with other students, and later on continue and attend the whole conference. So I got selected to be co-chairing the next one, which is going to be in 2025. What I'm hoping to bring on board is more participation from students. Since this is focused on the seminar part of the conference and not the whole conference, I would like to see more attendance, like getting more funding for students to attend so they don't have the financial barrier to go, because it's a bit expensive, not too expensive, but they would learn a lot. And then maybe having the opportunity to bring in some forensic science communication workshops to the seminar, so then students can, you know, learn how can I deliver my research to in a layman format, or how can I explain it, or how can I have some, you know, trust in myself to explain things, or, you know, personality and science communication, which is needed, I guess, a lot in the forensic field.
Good luck with that.
It's great.
That's amazing. So one last question before we let you go. So you have so much experience and extensive knowledge in the field of DNA, epigenetics. Is there any upcoming technology that you're really excited about, and where do you see the field moving in the future?
Yeah, so I wouldn't consider myself yet an expert. I'm working on it, but thank you for the compliment. I think that's a good question. Well, there are a lot of there are a few manuscripts that are recently being published about new ways of sequencing your DNA that are going to give you more answers beyond just the genetics, but maybe adding epigenetics, or, you know, or other chemistries that will make things either faster or less labor intensive. So I think optimizing that sequencing aspect will be where I hope the forensic field will be. So then we can have, again, more adoption for that technology, so we can get more cases resolved. Yeah,
well, that's hopefully if things work out pretty well in the field, and we take care of the backlogs. But thank you so much once again. We really, really appreciate your time. Yes.
Actually,
sorry.
Can I ask you one last question?
Sorry. I'm so sorry.
No. I just thought of this. It's probably like a me and Nitty question, you know, to be like greedy, but because you're like the associate director for the Forensic Science Center, you're teaching, you're the head of the Mobile program, you're helping kids with their research, and you're recruiting people. Could you give us, mainly me and Nitty, some advice on how you kind of do what you want to do while staying in the field that you want to do it, if that makes sense? Because part of this podcast is, this is something that we're both very interested in, and we, you know, dedicate our time to. So we're combining what we love with, you know, what we do. So how do you do that? Because it seems like you have so many, I don't want to say things on your plate, but you seem to have mastered doing all these things in the field that you love, and doing such like different things in it, if that makes sense. That was probably a terrible way to ask, but
no, it does make sense. And well, it's a work in progress, and nothing comes just overnight. I've always saw myself multitasking, if that makes sense. So I've always seen myself not just focus on one thing. But I think having a good team would really help you navigate through all of that. So I'm really grateful to have a team who are extremely passionate and talented and experts in what they're doing and willing to learn. So if they come, again, from a casework background, but they're willing to learn all of these new technologies that probably they've never in the past decade worked on as a DNA analyst. And that what keeps my job, I guess, interesting, is that I see this growth in my team, and that they want to learn and grow, and they give the best of what they can, right? And they're always learning, and I'm always learning. That's something I always tell my team. Yes, my title is director, whatever, right? but we're all here together because we're all here for one mission, which is serving the forensic community, helping them to, you know, come up with better ways to do things, but also us learning and satisfying that crave of learning. So I guess having a good team that really can support you throughout all of the different tasks you're supposed to do is really key to being able to, you know, doing the work and delegating things as I can. Yes, I like to be involved in everything and anything, right? I was telling Nidhi, I miss being in the lab doing some pipetting, but now I have the team doing that. And I feel like I don't want to step on whatever they're doing. I trust them, and I know that they're doing the job they love to do. If I miss it, I'll go sometimes downstairs to the lab, do some stuff, troubleshoot some stuff, but I know that I'm responsible to do the other things on the back end that probably not seen clearly, but it's a lot, but then I enjoy it. So I guess it's a progress. We always learn. We always try to find different ways, try to take good notes. My to-do list every day is like, you know, scratching, I did this, and then another list comes in and I'm like, okay, that's part of the job. So yeah.
All right. Thank you. That was great.
She's actively involved in a lot of things, and she's always, so we met at the International Symposium of Human Identification. She was one of the ISHI ambassadors. And I was an ISHI ambassador the year next after her. So that's how I met her. And then when I met her, I was already just starting off to try new things. Well, she was already way ahead. Being involved, people like knew her, like networking. But honestly, I'm saying this jokingly, but it's very important. Learning from you, I also learned a lot to like talk to people, ask questions and all of that. So just for the people listening to us, it seems very difficult, especially like it was for me international. I was the only Indian moving around. People don't get my accent, but who cares at the end of the day, right? You have to learn, you have to make your mark, and you have to do good things that you want to do. So let the world do whatever they want, you do your work. And networking actually helps, guys. So please don't take it for granted.
Absolutely.
Talking to people. That's how Julian and I met. I sent him an email. That's how me and Mirna met. So please, just FYI, people, like keep networking and you'll get there.
Yep.
Amen.
Don't shy away from asking questions and you're gonna get it.
Eventually you'll get there.
Yes.
But is there any other questions, Julian?
I'm good. I'm great.
Okay. So that was a wonderful last question. Thank you once again, Mirna. We really
thank you so much.
Thank you.
Of course. No, again, thank you both for the hard work you're putting. You're trying again to juggle so many things on your your academic life and this podcast, your work, Julian. It's like incredible to see, and it's so heartwarming to see, you know, people that passionate, giving the best and trying to do more to the community. And again, thank you for having me here.
Thank you so much. Very kind words. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll meet soon. Thank you.
Yes. Bye. Bye.
Bye.